Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Blackstone Millville Regional School District School Committee meeting of Thursday, April 9th. My name is Alan Himmelberger. I am not usually the one who opens the meeting, but this is our reorganization meeting, so I will call the meeting to order, and then we will have the nominations for chair, and then I will gladly turn over the meeting to him or her. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And introduction of members to my left.
Bill Chaplin, Blackstone.
Steve Tringali, Millville.
Farrah Larkin, Millville.
Jane Reggio, Millville.
Georgette Jarrett, Blackstone.
John Wozniak, Blackstone.
Becky Greenstein, Blackstone.
Millville.
Dave Thompson, Assistant Superintendent.
I'm Alan Himmelberger, Superintendent of Schools. The first order of business is election of officers under Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 22B. I would open the floor for nominations for chairman for next year. Mrs. Reggio?
I'd like to nominate Aaron Vanaco.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, Erin Vanaco. Is there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Bill Chaplin.
Motion to nominate Mr. Chaplin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any other nominations for chair? I would accept a motion to close nominations. Hearing none.
Move to close nominations.
Move to
Second.
close. And the second by Mrs. Reggio. We have two names before us for chair for the upcoming year, Erin Vanaco and William Chaplin. We'll take the vote, roll call. All those in favor of Erin Vanaco, please raise your hand. Five. All those in favor of William Chaplin, please raise your hand. Two. Any abstentions? Okay. Erin Vanaco is chair. Erin, you get to take this and then open the nominations for vice chair and for secretary.
Congratulations.
Just making sure. Okay, so we are looking for a nomination for vice chair. Can I nominate someone?
Yeah, absolutely.
I nominate Wendy Greenstein.
A second.
Okay, Wendy has been nominated and Bill is seconding the nomination. Are there any other nominations? Okay, nominations are closed. All those in favor of Wendy for vice chair, please raise your hand. You're not voting?
Could abstain or something.
So seven, and, do I have to do oppose? Yes. Anyone opposed to Wendy? It's a one vote. Okay, and Wendy is now nominated as the vice chair. I'm looking for a nomination for treasurer. Wendy?
I nominate Jane Reggio, the treasurer.
Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Georgette and Steve. All those in favor of Jane Reggio for treasurer, please raise your hand. Unanimous. And I'm looking for a nomination for secretary.
I nominate Georgette.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Nominations are closed. All those in favor of Georgette as secretary, please raise your hand. Unanimous. Okay, and moving forward on the agenda,
Switch seats.
I don't know, do we need to?
Probably should.
Better camera.
Nice try.
I know, it's the boys against the girls. Have a volleyball match.
We're definitely gonna switch it up next time. This isn't, I know we're in a middle school, but it don't have to be like middle school.
Yeah, really, we're at a great little
My middle
dance.
school, the girls always used to get ice cream because one of the fathers owned an ice cream truck.
Change your name tags, though, boys and girls.
Sevens and Wendy's.
Bill, do you want to be Wendy, or you want to pass it over?
You're a good
Thought
looking
you took it
Wendy.
with you.
Thank you.
And moving forward on the agenda, we don't have any student reps, but public forum. Is there anyone that wanted to speak today? We will have another one, so. Okay, thank you. And our student reps are at the concert, so, okay. So moving on to consent agenda A. I need a motion for consent agenda A and whether or not we want to vote on the entire agenda or break it up.
Yeah,
Do you want to break it up, or do?
no, it was fine, didn't have any issues with any of the minutes, no.
No?
So I move consent of agenda A.
So, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Bill. Any discussion? All those in favor of consent agenda A,
Aye.
say aye. Any nays? Okay, approved. And then moving on to the school committee, we have discussion of regional agreement letter. I guess we'll just
Bill,
open
did you
the,
just want an update on that, or
No.
I wasn't sure?
No, I put it on there because I knew it went out, and
Okay.
just to let everybody know on the committee as well as the public, I mean, I thought it looked outstanding, so the meeting will be next week.
No, the
the
meeting,
deadline.
no, the deadline would be next week to get in submissions.
Okay, so yeah,
Um,
I would just go over it for the new
okay.
people and then
I do
go
have
from there.
I don't have it printed, but I have it right here.
Can I just see it for a minute? I did have it printed, but I don't have it. Stay printed. Oh. So a letter went out to look for volunteers to join some groups to, for a study for the regional agreement. The study groups were the social media and communications group, a building committee group, a staffing committee, a transportation, and a budget committee. We're looking for community members that may not currently be a parent. We're looking for school committee members to join on one of those subgroups. We're also looking for administrators and parents, parents from both elementary schools would be great to have. Right now, it went out last Tuesday, and right now we have 7 people who volunteered their time to work on the groups. The deadline for joining a group and pulling those groups together is the 16th of April. On the 16th of April, I will organize all the groups, and then we will meet on May 5th. The purpose for May 5th is to meet as a group, decide on a task, and what they want to accomplish. We kind of have, somewhat of an idea of what we're looking for. And the purpose of the groups is to kind of come up with a model or an idea of what it would look like if we were to join the elementary schools. Because I know that when they go to vote, many parents are going to have questions. So I think the purpose that was created The purpose for this was so that we had some answers to the questions that might be raised. And again, this letter was created by a group of 8 people that met. It was our third meeting on the regional agreement. So this was created, it was sent out, it was edited by those members, and then it was just sent out last week. So as of right now, we're hoping to get more than 7 people to join those groups. And we'll see what we get on the 16th of April.
But 7 is good so far, so. Bill?
What are you looking for from the committee? I know you wanted a liaison in each of the committees. Do you have people in mind? Do you want us just to volunteer?
I think it would be good to volunteer, anybody who wants to join. I think it would be important to join something that you really are interested in. So the only thing that I ask is if you could do it through either through email or on the template, just because if I'm just told, I have a lot of people just saying, can I join?
The 7 people that have volunteered thus far, do you have those allocated? Have they volunteered for any particular subcommittee or?
Actually, the ones that volunteered, most of them volunteered. One volunteered from social media, and this is off the top of my head. One did staffing. We have an administrator who's offering to do 3 different, whichever ones we need. Transportation, we actually have somebody from the bus company that's offering to be on the study for transportation. So we do have 1 for each, so that's what we have so far. We only have 7, so I think I'll know more next week.
Okay.
Yeah, it just came home.
In paper
Yesterday
copy,
or-
it just came home, yeah.
Do you have a number in mind for each? Like, what's a good working size group?
I think we want to keep it relatively small, so we can get, I think we're just looking for different people to join. So on the last paragraph, it says, it's our intent that each study group will be served by a parent from each town, a teacher from each elementary school, an administrator, possibly a community member that may not be a parent, and a member of the school committee. So relatively small so that we can really stay focused on the task that needs to be accomplished.
You say you sent notices home with the students for these committees. Have you posted it on any
Yep.
other media like
We
the
posted it
cable?
on MESPA, the Millville MESPA has it posted. I actually talked to Joanna Arquette, she's posting it on the BMR website. It was posted through BPO. I pretty much just sent it to Bridget and said, if you can scatter it wherever you can,
She sent it out to the towns.
She
I don't
sent
know
it out
if
to
she
the
posted it,
towns.
I don't know.
Towns.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could put it on, at the library, as well.
I was just wondering if they posted it on the cable television station for the local, like Blackstone's cable television station.
Not a bad idea.
No.
Yeah.
Does
Some of
Millville
us
have
don't
Yeah.
have kids in
They
the
do?
Yeah,
school
you go to the
system,
police
so it's
department.
a
so
little
you
bit,
can definitely,
don't want to get involved.
Yep.
sure, I'll definitely look into that. Any other ideas or thoughts for getting it out? Because I just want to make sure that everybody's represented. So I think we need some from Millville and some from Blackstone, and I know our meetings were very small, when we've met, so I think it's really, they were productive, we did get a lot done. We came up with these groups together, we formed the reason behind the groups together, but I just want to make sure that people are out now, and not concerned later, so hopefully we'll get a good number, a good turnout. That's all I have.
Anyone else with questions or concerns? All right, moving on to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vanaco. Before I forget, I wanted to ask the committee if it would be possible to meet briefly on Thursday, April 30th. We are going out for a bond sale on the roof projects, and the sale will take place April 21st. And the settlement date is May 5th. So in between those 2 dates, the school committee needs to vote to accept and then a signature from chair and treasurer. So it's the week after we come back from vacation. And it would be a very quick meeting, but it's a necessary one to have to make sure we get those signatures on the settlement agreement.
It's fine with me. I'm good.
Yeah, and considering we don't have another meeting until
14th.
May 14th, it's probably a good idea to make that a meeting, just in case something comes up, or,
So we'll post it
yeah.
then? Okay, thank you.
And I'll be happy to give an update on the, what the groups look like on that day,
Yeah.
too.
We'll do the regular time for 7.
If that's amenable to the committee, we can post it for 7. It will be a very short meeting.
We'll probably have meetings in between regarding the budget, no?
Well, the in-between is the vacation week. We have,
We have next week.
I'm going before Blackstone Finance Committee Monday evening.
That's probably why it's a good idea to make that an actual meeting, so if
Okay.
something comes up with the budget,
Yep,
we don't have anything in between.
okay. I'll have Bridget post it then. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a request here for the reimbursement to the student activities account from our Assistant Treasurer, Donna Scungio. In accordance with MGL 7147, request reimbursement issued from the Student Activity Agency account to the Student Activity Checking account. The amount is $8,010.76. In making this request, hereby certify the student receipts equal or exceed the reimbursement and have been collected for these purposes and are already deposited in the agency account. So I just needed a vote and
So we need a
signatures.
motion.
A motion.
So we need a motion
To
to
accept.
accept the transfer, and that was in our packet, so.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Motion by Bill, seconded by John. All those in, any discussion?
So this is just formality.
This is
Yeah.
formality. It's just to make sure that all of the monies are officially accounted for as we move from one account to the other.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous?
Thank you. Also in your packet, as well as, is the third quarter cafeteria update. Again, we are having a good year by all standards of measurement, and there are plenty to measure our food service operation. We are, on the plus side, $23,999.48 through March 31st. Our counts continue to stay steady. Our profit is where it should be, and both our director, Gene Sheridan, our admin, Laura Reyes, and the entire staff just do a wonderful job every day. And, this breaks it down by month, and you can see that they are doing a terrific job, both in terms of quality and quantity. And just bring that to you for your information. Also, in your packet is the third quarter revenue and expenditure report through March 31st. And on the expenditure report, as you can see, we do have some balancing to do that will take place probably that April 30th meeting. I would have a list for you, and that would be a convenient time to do it. We do have $6,934,743 encumbered. Those are dollars that we know or believe that we have to spend. We still have a remaining balance of $587,325. We will have to move money as we spend down. Some of this, there's still a few moving pieces to this. One of them is the snow removal costs that are in here. We are expecting reimbursement from FEMA to the tune of 75%. We haven't heard differently, so those funds are expected to arrive prior to June 30th. And my thanks to Chief Sweeney, who did a terrific job of organizing all of the expenditures that were eligible, and so we expect those to come back.
Where is that on this? I can't find it for some reason.
Snow removal, the majority of it is in 4210, maintenance of grounds, and 4220, maintenance of buildings.
The expended to date, 74,682.
Yes.
What's the number that we might get back?
Well, in terms of total, if we spend 60, we should see 45. If we spend 70, we should see slightly higher.
That's in addition to the 587,
Correct.
correct?
Correct. Also, I'm sorry,
What is the time frame for FEMA?
they're supposed to have it back by June 30th. We have not heard anything since the original timeframe was expanded. Originally, it was just the blizzard, and then they expanded it to Jan 24 to March 4th. So we added more to that. So we'll have to see if we do in fact get that back in time. The other piece that's not on this expenditure report is funds that were encumbered FY14 by Dr. Davis based upon anticipated expenses. And most of those did not materialize. We had favorable experience. And there's about $180,000 there on FY14 monies that are encumbered. Those, if not used in fiscal 15, would flow into E&D, which is where we, as we go through the numbers on the budget, is where we decided that we could afford $400,000 from E&D to offset the school budget for next year, and still keep the excess and deficiency count at a standard, stable level. The state allows us to keep 5% of our budget in that account, and right now it will be somewhere around 2.5 to 2.6%. So as we go through the final quarter, much of what, as you would see as we talk about next year's reductions based upon the adopted number by the committee, we have a lot of things that we need. And if we can spend carefully down the fourth quarter, we can then maybe purchase some of our textbooks, some of our technology that we have planned for next year. We can spend it with this year's funds and thereby take some pressure off of our budget for FY16.
When do you think you'll be comfortable to make that decision?
Well, we know that most of our heavy utilities are paid. We know that our special ed costs for anyone incoming is, we are not financially responsible for any incoming students. So we would have a pretty good understanding of the spend, if not April 30th, definitely by May 14th.
May 14th.
And then what we would do is propose to balance the lines by transferring and having the committee vote to balance the lines from where we do have money to where lines have been out of balance. Certainly, special education continues to be, as it is in almost every district. I was at the collaborative board meeting today, and it is a challenge, given the fact that the funding mechanism in Chapter 70 and foundation budget doesn't begin to address the total needs there, and that we are seeing more and more students with more and more needs, and we have to make sure that we are able to juggle the revenues to meet the expenditures. The revenue report is a one-page report. Right behind that, and as you can see, based upon what we have budgeted and where we have received, we had from the budget projection $10,036,060. We've received just over $8 million of that. Chapter 70, very similar in terms of payable, $10,006,000, and we've received $8 million of that. 71B, which is transportation, which has been ballyhooed up and down and inside and out over the last year or so. We thought that it was going to be funded at 90%. The 9C cuts in November took that away. Where we are this year is anticipating, and this will probably come very late in the year, that second half of the transportation reimbursement, that we estimate to be $232,000. As you can see from the other revenue sources, that school choice number, we don't have a choice. That's the net impact of 70-plus choicing out versus 40-plus choicing in.
Sorry, where's that number?
That's the first number under the other revenue sources, the intergovernmental receivables on school
Right
choice.
there?
That, we anticipate, will be slightly lower for next year, but that's the hard number for this year based upon
It's just public school.
the 10-1. Preschool tuition continues to trend as we have projected. The special ed tuition, that is funds that we receive from another district for a student that we have a program that fits. Our interest is a little bit better than we had projected. Athletic admissions may have been projected too low, or maybe we have more interest this year, but we are over there. Student fees, again, a little bit higher, as is building use. Medicaid typically comes in late, the activity administrative charge, as well as the direct bill, and so we would anticipate that revenue being met as well. Circuit breaker, we just received Q3, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, so it did not make this. So out of that 344, 248, there's an additional 80-plus in there from third quarter. Miscellaneous, we are okay. The capital projects, which are the sewer project and the middle school, again, we have received most of that. The excess and deficiency was what was voted to offset current year at 150. So that is where we are revenue-wise. I don't anticipate any concerns here. It's typically that we sit in the last 2 weeks of June with our fingers crossed, because we think we know it's coming, but until it gets here, we breathe a sigh of relief. Again, as I mentioned, FY15, we are looking to make sure that we know exactly what we have left to encumber. Part of the process is to go through purchase orders that are outstanding now, and where we know that we have received everything, or we know we're not going to receive anything, then we can close out those POs, and those dollars would then flow to available. And I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess is where I would say, at the start of the fourth quarter on current year expenditures based upon what I see now. As I mentioned, FY16, I know the town boards have had a lot to digest. We went to the Blackstone Selectmen's meeting on Monday, Tuesday evening, and we have been to the Millville board meetings. And the bottom line is, it's very clear for all of us to see what this district needs, and the fact that we have made do with less in 5 of the last 9 years. And that is a challenge. The other piece of FY16 or any forward budget is to know what the number is as early in the cycle, i.e. by the second town meeting. Because the process of having to lay off and non-renew staff to not be liable for their salaries legally, and then have to spend time rehiring, posting, interviewing, takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort. And I think that can be avoided, and we can use that time to plan programs and make sure that we know where we are heading into the next year. And that's critical time, that if we don't spend it on the work of adjusting personnel, it gives us a tremendous amount of time to know what we want to do and what we want to accomplish around curriculum upgrades, around programs within our special ed department, around professional development to help everyone do their jobs better, and around our technology upgrades. So there's a lot to be done. There's a lot that we need to address. as we saw, and as we'll go through the pages, the initial needs-based budget for FY16 was $23 million. And that was not anything but true need. It was not nice-to-haves. It wasn't, let's bring it here to start here and end here. It was truly based upon what we needed to move forward. And so, as I have told everyone who will listen, we can certainly make any number work. It's where we want to be. And right now, we're in a situation where we do have to make some investments in certain areas of our educational infrastructure to continue to provide opportunities. We know that almost 15% of our students educate outside the district, and some of the reasons given are lack of rigor in our curriculum, lack of modern facilities, and those are things that we're certainly going to have to address as we move forward. I know this district has a very proud history and has done a lot over the years, but certainly we have lost a bit of altitude in the last several years, and we know we need to target specific areas to make sure that we are moving ourselves forward and to keep our students ready for college and career. Sure.
What was the date that, because last year I was confused. What was the date that we have to non-renew or pink slip people? Was it May or was it
The
June?
non-renewal date is by law, and that's June 15th.
Okay.
And typically, that would be staff without professional status. So unless you have served 3 consecutive years in one district, you do not gain professional status. And if you only have a couple of dollars to compensate for, you would then non-renew all your first-year teachers and professional staff. If you had significant dollars, then you might, which is what Dr. Davis had to do last year, which was to non-renew 60-plus staff members.
But we did that in May.
We did that in May.
Right.
Which, I don't know
You
if
can
I'd
do
wait
it
till June
earlier.
15th.
You can do it earlier, but you have to do it by June 15th. But you can do it earlier. The only thing is, you are on the hook to pay folks through the end of the year. You're only non-renewing their contract for the next year.
Which is July 1.
Correct.
Right, all right.
Correct.
Yeah, we're not letting people go.
No. No.
We have to, it's for the next
It's a
fiscal year.
procedural step that is necessary if we do not know what our budget is, then we cannot legally expose the financial stability of the district in that manner. So if, the Millville Town Meeting is in the second week of May, and Blackstone Town Meeting is Tuesday, the 26th, I believe. So if, after those 2 meetings, we know the budget number, and it is one that we can afford, then that's great news, because then we would make the plans based around that.
So that conversation's going to wait until those 2 town meetings? Is that?
Yes. And obviously, when you're dealing with people's livelihoods and people's plans for the future, it is very important not to create unnecessary hardship. And I think that's something that anyone would appreciate. And it's something that is very real, and there's a very real cost to having to go through that process. And there is, if it can be avoided, then that allows a lot of time, energy, and resources to be put to other things that have a huge payoff.
I'm still a little concerned at the last week of May. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think last year we had these conversations. So they were very transparent on, what was going to have to be cut. It wasn't necessarily a name, but at least we had that conversation, that dialogue in these meetings, so that it wasn't anything that was a surprise come that last week in May. So I'm
I think
just,
we did it before.
We
We
were
did it
waiting.
mid-May.
Yeah.
I don't know when they went out, but I know that conversation was a good portion of early May.
But that
And I-
was because Millville's town meeting voted no, I think. Wasn't it? We had a no vote from Millville, then they had to go back and reconsider, and that wasn't till June 30th. So we knew we had to do it at that
But
point.
we had ideas before the Millville town meeting, though.
Yeah, because
We-
I
we knew where
thought
we
he did two
might have had
different
to go.
letters. Like, I thought he,
Yes, he
like,
did.
there was a May date that he had to do
Any
something.
new, just for last year, any non-renewable person
Right.
knew, I think, by mid-May. Is
Yeah.
that- am I-
No,
I thought it was May
was like
15th. not
40.
June
If I
15th.
remember,
Yeah.
Perry sent out all 61 or 62
Correct.
to everyone who did not have status.
Correct.
And I think that was what had to be done for the best interests of the district.
Because I think when we get into the FY16 budget, the cuts that you're gonna outline,
Yep.
the initial 700, I didn't think there was positions in there. that we
There
would
is,
have
but
to-
it's additional staff or
Right.
replacement positions.
okay.
Yes, yes.
But we still had that list of exactly what that was, and I
Right.
think it's important to, I mean, that's right around the corner. So I really think that that's something that we need to really get done and actually be able to look at that list. Not names, but just,
But are you talking about what we have in front of us, or are you saying if the budget's not approved?
well, I think we have to look at it, but yeah, I think we have to look at
Because
both.
tonight, it's really gonna be the first time we even get to talk about
The 700.
what we already
Right.
did.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And that's a good segue into what we had come up with. And there's a page in there called FY16 Budget Requests. That was presented at the public hearing February 26th. And in that, there was proposed staffing, new positions, as well as replacement of positions that were cut to the tune of $466,000. There was curriculum and professional development increases of $149. There was technology increases of $38. The insurance and retirement number was $255,000. The additional special education costs, $482, and contractual increases of $348. That total increase was $1,741,677. That was on top of $21,332,524, and that gave a proposed budget of $23,074,021.
Right.
201. That number represented an 8.2% increase. That is difficult in the best of times.
And that was our needs-based.
That's
In
a
the ideal
needs-
society, those were our needs.
Needs-based
Right.
budget. Then what we
Not an
did,
ideal society, a real society.
Yeah,
That-
there you
I mean,
go.
You say
Right.
ideal, and I'm like, oh, where
Yeah.
are we, Wellesley? No,
No.
this is what that
In
we
the real,
needed.
yeah.
right, and so what we did, on the pages behind there, there's the narrative on the reduction. The FY budget reductions, FY16, that starts off, since much of our needs-based budget requested increase is in required funding, that we had selected areas that were discretionary by nature that we chose to cut. And these numbers, that 707,861 that was reduced out of the needs-based budget, gave us the budget number that the committee adopted at the adoption hearing on March 12th. And that was $22,366,340. And that represents about a 4.9% increase over current FY15, which, by the way, as you see on the next pages, did not match FY14. And that herein is a big part of our problem. So, around the cuts, we had asked for, in the needs-based budget, to add a preschool, an additional preschool at Millville, a science teacher at the high school to increase the rigor, because we did receive the advanced placement grant
Oh, we did?
from Math and Science Initiative,
Oh, yay.
pending
Oh,
school,
The budget.
the state budget
State
being
budget.
approved. 703.5, 3055, I think, is the line item in the state budget. That's an important number for us, because we have been conditionally approved for that grant.
So are you saying it's coming out of our line items, but we're hoping for that grant to actually move forward with the science teacher?
No, the science teacher comes out of our line item. The grant itself provides for training and professional development some additional materials. But we only have 4 science teachers. We need a 5th in order to be able to meet the demands of the curriculum. We do not have an LMC coordinator at the high school. That's a key position.
Which is what for Tara and John?
The Library and Media Center at the high school is the coordinator. That position, as we move into our accreditation next year, that is a position that is looked at as a must-have.
And we're not going to move
But-
forward with
but-
it?
Right now, we're not moving forward with it.
So
So-
how can we
How can we, yeah,
incorporate
how do we do that?
How can we get around, not
Well,
around that?
as
but
you
how can
see,
we-
as you see how this whole thing comes together,
Right.
that's the art of this.
But the
Because-
reality of the
Right, you can't-
accreditation is, they could come and say, sorry, we don't have one because we don't have funding.
Right.
They'll come back and look at us in 5 years and say, we're gonna try to get one within the next 5 years, like the library waiver. You know, they'll give us a waiver.
Gotcha.
There's a 2-year and
I
a
have a lot of
5-year
personal
follow-up
feelings on
on
this
the
in
high school
terms of-
accreditation.
Have they already done that, though? Aren't we presently under a waiver?
Waiver
I
now?
don't believe so, because we had one on the last,
Right.
yeah, we were fine.
Yeah, how long has
four.
it been since there has not been one? 3 years?
You guys would know better than I. I
2
think
years.
it's been
Three?
2 years that we
Two.
cut that position.
2 years.
2?
Yeah, it's been
We had
two.
one the
Yeah.
first year.
Yeah. So these were all additional
Right,
positions.
right.
But are we counting on a waiver? Is that a given, or is it?
What they'll do, we will explain that there's no position there because it was cut due to budget.
Right.
When they come and do their 2-year review, they will hope to see a position recreated.
Let me ask a question, because looking at the proposed reductions to get the $707,000 out,
Yep.
the proposals are all based on those new need requests. I mean, looks like, a little bit here and there out of other things.
That budget
But-
that was adopted, the 22,366.
Yeah.
That is based on an additional amount from
Right.
Blackstone.
Right.
Of 694,000.
Yeah.
And an additional amount from Millville of 280,000. Without those, then we are looking at
Even further
further
reductions. Right.
reductions.
And $1 million bucks.
But,
That
but
will
I
put us
guess
further behind.
I get all that, because I actually get all that for a change. I'm looking at this page where you have the narrative that indicates FY '16 budget reductions, which are the reductions that just get us to what we're submitting.
Right.
Exactly.
I assume developed by the leadership team. Most of these seem to be from those new things we said we needed. Was there any review of past budgets to say, okay, we know maybe no longer need X so that we can save Y?
Well,
And given all
when-
that, this is where they
when-
still would
when-
like to
When they
go.
originally did the needs-based, all
That's
that
what we
stuff
did.
was examined.
That's what we did.
That's what we did when we did the needs base.
We looked at every line in the school budget, all 1,000 plus. And where the trend analysis or the historical data showed that we were over anticipating, we reduced it. Now, a classic example is in the heating of the buildings this year. That line was taken down to fit into this current FY15 budget and was probably reduced a little bit too much. So that, coupled with the coldest January, February into March on record.
And April.
Puts us now, $80,000 in the hole on that heating line. So it's a constant balance and rebalance. And it's not to say that when we sort everything out on fourth quarter 15, that we might not be able to come to the committee and request additional positions. As good as we try to forecast, as much data as we can sift through and try and shift folks into the right locations, it's been a learning curve for Dave and I as well, in terms of what was in there and how do we move it forward. So, I think that you're right, it's frustrating to say, and I think that was Wendy's comment, geez, we just came up with 23 million, that should be the number. And I agree, and I think everybody would agree. The problem is, we can't get it all in 1 year. And I think it's up to the towns and the voters and the boards to understand that they look at the educational dollar, which is large, because the choice out number comes off the top. The charter school number comes off the top. Tri-county comes off the top. Blackstone Valley Tech comes off the top. This year, Norfolk Agricultural has had a huge increase in admissions. That comes off the top. So it forces the towns into a corner.
No win.
We take what we already have to spend, well, and what's left, our very own district, we have to negotiate around it to try and get to a number that makes sense. And that, unfortunately, is the way the current financing is structured across the Commonwealth. And for many, many districts, it becomes a challenge.
So wouldn't it be in our best interest to come up with scenarios? Last year, around May 22nd, we had scenarios. We had, if it doesn't go through, here is the scenario, here are the reductions, and then if it does pass, here are here is, what it's gonna look like. I think it's important to have scenarios.
You will have those. And again, Dave and I are new, but I would hope that there is enough information and enough will to understand that the 694 and the 280 additional thousands of dollars for both towns is necessary. And if it can come to pass, that would be a great restart or rebalance or reconfiguration of education in our district.
But I guess from an average taxpayer's view of this, when we started, you had given us a list of needs, essentially.
Yes.
And then we kind of took a lot of those needs away, because we can't ask for 8 point whatever percent. But we've gone away from lists, and so it kind of like, I get this number, I get all those numbers, but what does that mean? What does that mean in terms
What
of
does that look
new
like?
programming, new initiatives, new whatever? And this, sorry, is very wordy. So it's, I think, maybe what Wendy's saying without putting words into her mouth, but it was more helpful to me as a new person last year, and even probably would still be more helpful to me, is to see it more in a list.
I think
In a,
that's
And
in
I
your
can
packet,
certainly
too.
do that.
no, those
For
are
the
just
detail.
numbers. I want to know program
That's
wise.
this here.
What I don't want to do is give what I don't want to do. and
Right.
I want to be very
No,
clear.
fair,
It's
yeah.
what I don't want to do, is give the impression to the voters, to the towns, like every year,
Right.
don't worry, whatever you give us, we can make it work.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that either.
Because the danger there is we're going to get where we are right now.
Right, right.
And so the message to the towns from me, on behalf of the committee, because you voted that adopted number, is this is what we need.
Right.
And it then becomes incumbent on the towns to balance all of the educational pieces of the pie within that one big pie called the town's budget. But our district is at a very critical point. And so I do not want to now prepare the cuts that.
No,
that-
I
and the-
get
and the
that. I get
reductions,
that.
Because right now, we still have a lot of things in
Right.
play. We don't know.
Insurance.
We don't know if we're gonna get that FEMA money by
Right.
June 30th. We don't know where our health insurance is going to come in. And that has a huge impact. If it's zero, then we're $155,000 to the good. If it's 10.9, we're about 175,000 not so good. And that's a big
just-
swing.
Are we,
Going off of what Jane was saying, though, I just want to, it's hard to see, everything that was presented to us was needed. And I think, Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, especially for me, looking at the science, I would rather keep moving forward with what we have. We adopted the 22,
366.
366, saying this is what we need. And it would just be nice to see us still moving forward and not taking out something new that we needed, especially the science. It just made sense when Mr. Dudek was here. And it almost feels like we should be able to go back and look at the budget and say, you know what, this is something from 5 years ago, and this is going to move us forward better. Because, and I think maybe that's what Jane was trying to say.
And I understand that, and I guess, I'm seeing the reductions the way, I'm just not, we're asking the towns for 800,000 additional dollars, I guess.
980,
975.
yeah.
What is it doing?
What are we gonna do with that?
It's
What-
going to give us some new positions in staffing. It's going to give us some curriculum. It's going to cover the
But I
insurance and
guess I'm saying,
retirement
but
increases.
I guess I'm saying what? When you say some new position, because we had a list before.
The only two positions right now additional that we are desperate for,
You had the counselor and
guidance
the
counselor at the complex and a behavioral classroom
classroom.
teacher.
But I guess what I'm saying is I think we need to say that, so that people know,
Right.
we need these dollars because we need this. And if we don't have this, then we're sending these people to other places, and then these numbers change even
And
more
our special
dramatically.
ed and transportation
Correct.
costs continue to
Correct.
spiral out of
Right.
control.
Mr.
Well, I think that, in my estimation, you need to go one step further. You not only need to say, this is what we need and this is why we need it, I think you need to kind of spell it out in a little bit more grand detail, so folks so you can't just point to, because I think they're getting callous to, the students will go elsewhere.
Right.
Because I think what you're doing is saying, well, they're better, they have better programs, and they're just gonna escape, to other programs, and it's gonna cost us money. I think we need to say, that's a consideration, but a secondary one. Sure. We're using these funds to strengthen our program, to solidify our program, so it's more attractive, not only to the students who are currently in it, but those looking at it from the outside. But I had another question on the budget reductions. When you turn to the last, second to last paragraph on purchasing the handicap van and hiring your own driver.
Yep.
And you said you can save 100,000 per year. And I'm wondering, is that tied to the expectation that you're gonna keep 3 or 4 additional students in the district?
No,
Or
the
is it-
van is currently, we pay $248,000 to transport students within the district,
Right, I understand.
contracted. So those students are already here.
Mm-hmm.
If we could transport it using our own driver and our own van, we would be able to save well over $100,000. So we'd have to spend some money to save some. The other piece of that is if we had programs in place that we could then bring back some students that we currently have attending outside the district, that would also reduce our special ed costs.
Does that number take into account depreciation of the vehicle and all that kind of other financial factors related to it? I'm just
No,
mindful of the fact that when you get at these town meetings, you've got auto mechanics and truck drivers who stand up there, and they're
Yeah.
gonna debate you on the mechanical aspects of buying a vehicle and what it costs, and they get into the nuances of that as opposed to a broader understanding of,
Right.
this is what we're paying now to lease it, but they look at it and say, well, the maintenance is being all paid for as part of that, the component price, the driver's all paid for, the workers' comp's all paid for. You have to hire another driver in case the first driver gets hurt, injured, or sick. So they're gonna take that into account. I'm just wondering if that
Yep.
number takes that into account, and
That number is based on a new vehicle, so the maintenance and would be minimal. The personnel costs are factored in.
okay.
But if we have these students for the next 3 to 6 years, that's a lot of money.
Yep, okay.
But you're right, there is other costs that will drive it. But those costs shouldn't be used to be the reason why we shouldn't go forward and explore.
I understand that, I just wanna
Yeah.
be prepared to.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm
Yep.
anticipating
Yep.
fights on the floor.
And again, this is new for me.
Yeah.
And Dave, and I'm just trying to give the same number, the same information, the same detail, so folks know that it's But I take your comments to heart, that we need to expose what the dollars give us.
Right.
And why they're so necessary. And I think that's the narrative, that's the piece that we really have to
Yeah.
continue with. Because there is some, I mean, we have lived it this year. All of the cuts that we made last year, a nurse, a guidance counselor, a social emotional teacher, those cuts came home to roost very quickly this fall, as we got additional students in, and we had to go back. We came to the committee shortly after the start of school to ask for another paraprofessional and another special ed teacher, because we were just, we could not keep our heads above water because of those cuts. And I think, and again, I know folks don't want to look at the past, but when you look at how this district was funded for the last 9 years, you can't escape that. And the bottom line is that our budget, general fund budget from '06 to '15 increased by 10% total. Yes, there were years it increased by 5 and 3 and 2, but there was 5 years where it did not increase at all, it was reduced. And that is a challenge to meet when you have built-in escalation in your budget. And I know that's ancient history, and no one wants to revisit it. But that's the facts, and that's where we are today. We are, however you measure it, well below state average in per pupil. We know we have needs that are real, and those two positions could save us substantial money. If we could get that other guidance counselor, if we could restaff that was cut last year. We know we have the needs around some of our youngest students, and they deserve to be, the opportunity to be educated with their peers here. And, you know, many districts do it well. There are districts who don't do it at all and elect to send out. But there is an ability, I think, for us to do that and to be able to deliver the best opportunities for all of our kids, for all of our students.
Yeah, just to go, if we go back to the original needs-based budget,
Right.
okay? Go back to that and look at that. If you look at those numbers, you look at the previous year to this year, there are lines that were reduced, money that was moved, okay? The administrative team went through it.
Okay.
Where were we overspending? Where were we underspending? All right, what did we need? Those needs are real needs, okay? They are things that we need in this district to do right by the children who go to school here.
Right.
Okay? Unfortunately, we cannot get it all at once. When we sat down again to cut that number by $700,000, we went through again and trimmed every single line.
Oh, you did, okay. All right.
We already did that.
Okay.
Scaled back, materials, scaled back professional development, to $1,000 here and $500 there. The only other way to get to that number is personnel. Okay, and that's something that the citizens of this district need to realize. There is no fat in this budget.
Right.
There is no room in this budget. That's why you see negative numbers here when things were not funded and we are not able to meet students' need, and we send 4 or 5 out, $200,000 roughly, because we cut positions that were needed the year before. That impacts this year. It impacts us going forward. Okay? And I know, 8% is a lot to ask. Okay, so we're gonna have to put off some of these needs. Doesn't mean they're not needed.
Yeah.
They are needed. Okay? But the reality is, to go below that number and to cut below that number is gonna be even more painful.
So the van is in our list, so we're actively
We're actively
looking
researching
and
that to see if
researching.
that is something that is viable. To John's point, there
Right.
are a lot of math here that you want to make sure we have.
But we are counting on that as part of the 700,000.
Can I just, and just to capitalize on your point, I think that you, and the superintendent's point, I don't think you can minimize or ignore and not mention the fact that the sins of the past are being paid for in the present. I think that people need to understand that when you try to cut, then you pay the price at a later date. I mean, it's not just the school budget, it happens retraining, costs of loss of personnel, bringing people back, that all costs money. And when, it's easy to say, we'll cut this, we'll cut that, and go in there and have a fire sale and slash and burn the budget, but what you're gonna run into is more cost expenditures, and I think they need to know for every dollar you cut in this area, you're gonna expend $3 more or lose $3 more of funding in this other area that are gonna subsidize it. So I think that's, and I'm new here, so I don't know what the numbers are. I just know that when you go on the town floor,
Yep.
that's kind of how you have to you need to make these folks understand, it's simple to say, you cut the food budget, but when you cut the food budget, you say, well, we won't get milk. Well, I mean, there's certain things that'll happen is if you don't get a certain staple of your diet. Same thing here. If you terminate somebody, you gotta eventually hire them back. Or face the loss from another angle. Either you lose students because you don't have the service that the person provided and the quality of service provided, or when you get to the curriculum and they come and do your accreditation, it's a disaster from a funding perspective. And they need to understand that. And what we're doing is, I assume that what we're doing, at least from what I understand the budget, because I tried not to look at it because I was on FinCom, so I tried intentionally not to look at it there, but as I understand the school budget, what happened is that we had an area where we had flat spending, and actually a negative spending, and we went really low on the budget, and the way it's always been sold is we're gonna cut. And now we're paying the price for that, because now we got an exodus of students, we got an exodus of funding, because once you start digging that hole, you end up in Uxbridge, or in the similar type of situation, right? Which is exactly what they did. They built a brand-new school, and then they didn't fund it.
Right.
Which is, it's, well, a reserved opinion, but it has the same consequence.
Absolutely.
So I think they need to understand, not that you need to spend money to make money, but you need to spend money to save money. And I think that's a point well taken, and like on the van, that's why I asked that question.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is that this district did cut a lot in previous years. This district doesn't have a business manager.
Right.
This district doesn't have a curriculum director. It doesn't have a technology director in name, rank, and responsibility. We're very fortunate that Dave is covering curriculum and technology and professional development and mentoring and 16 other things, and that I am
Enjoying every bit
Business
of it.
manager.
That's why you're in the New England Patriots plan. You
Exactly.
kind of do everything, right?
right, and I'm learning the finances quickly.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that we've been able to accomplish all that we have in the past.
And I think we're slowly trying to get that back. I really think that we've made
no,
gains. The assistants, I mean, we're looking at the assistant, we're looking at the technology. He came in the other week and was excellent. I mean, we're really prioritizing what we need to do to move forward. We just need to keep moving forward.
I mean, I think to Jane's point, I agree with you, Jane. I'm not willing to budge on a couple of these things. You know what I mean? The ELL person, 0.6, we have 50 kids in the district that don't speak English. And a 0.4 FTE is covering those kids? That's,
Yeah,
It's not even close.
right.
right.
Exactly.
Right, it's not even
Not even
close.
close.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's negligence, on our part. And we have to make that point. The science person, we need that
That's-
science
that's- I
person.
mean-
So, and I know the leadership
Right.
and what Dave's saying.
Right.
They cut here and there, and unfortunately, we're gonna have to go through it again, and how do we kind of do this? I was happy to see the, I'm not saying this is real money here,
Right.
but we do have to look at that and see what's some of the money we can spend now in order to make this feel less. But these positions, and again, I can't stand it when someone says these are new positions, okay?
Yeah,
These
there
are,
you go.
these are positions that have been cut over the last 10 years that we're trying to get back. And we have to kind of say it that way. And John's absolutely right. We have to show clearly, when we spend this $1, we're gonna gain $3 in savings down the road.
Well, or I just look at the significance of small, what seem small and little things, kindergarten aides. You know, we essentially cut them and put Blackstones down to half-time. We had a disaster, in my opinion, in the fall, in terms of when those aides, the times of which they were scheduled, you know, the recess hullabaloo that happened. And I think some things happened at Millville as well, without any. And so, you know, in essence, we're back to the halftime at JFK, but still none at MES, and, you know, do we do less of them at JFK and at least give MES one, you know, I don't know, but it just seems like we keep,
Yeah,
digging a hole.
yeah, people aren't gonna like my suggestion later on down the month, because I'm sick of cutting support services. 'Cause
Yeah.
We spend and get hammered on that years down the road. I'm at a point where, you know what? Let's start cutting some teachers. Because if it's 19 kids in a classroom, it goes to 24. I'd rather keep the supportive peripheral people in there as well. And I know that's really unpopular. It's really unpopular. But
Yeah.
I'm there, to be honest with you.
I have a very good friend that teaches in another district far away in Massachusetts, who's been teaching for 20 years, 5th grade, has never had below 25.
There you go.
And this year has 32. I don't think that district is well-known for its quality of education. And I don't think that we should aspire to that level.
No,
I think, going on John's point, we can say we don't want to cut kindergarten aides, but if you look at the bigger picture, if we have kindergarten aides, we're going to increase the readability with these kids going from kindergarten to 1st grade,
Yep.
which is going to reduce the amount of services that these kids are going to need.
Down the
So
road.
instead of saying we're going to cut kindergarten aides, we need to look at it as more of a positive and say, we're gonna keep these aides because these aides are gonna support the education of the reading program, of the math program, which is gonna take away those services that we're paying a lot of money for. So I think that bigger picture is really going to hit home. I mean, we have the service, social emotional. We're going to put in place this social emotional program so that we are not having these situations that are occurring, and we're reactive to these situations, and we're, you know, adding things in the middle of the year. These programs are going to be in place so that these students are gaining those services, and it's going to, in fact, later on, be less.
Yeah, save
So I think
$5
if we-
down the road.
I think
Yep.
if we look at it that way, instead of, you know, and I'm just coming to the realization, if we look at it that way and say, we're not gonna cut the aides, where this is what's going to happen because we're keeping the aides, or this is what's going to happen because, you
We
know.
have
our-
a science teacher.
Right, because we have a science teacher, our 10th grade MCAS scores are going to go up, or the, you know, the curriculum that's gonna be 9th, 10th, and 11th is going to be supported. So
We're
I
not gonna
think-
see that money for a couple of years.
But-
That's
but-
the problem. And the thing is, we have to go and find the money now.
Right, but you're not gonna see, I mean, the math program, you're not gonna see, we will start seeing the reading program, because now it's 3 years old. So now we have a
Absolutely.
3-year-old foundation program that we're going to start seeing successes in our MCAS scores. And that's what people look at when they come to our town. They open up the website and they say, you know, what's the report card of Blackstone and Millville? And they look right at it and they say, I mean, we have developments and we need to put people in those developments. And looking at the positive of those kindergarten aides and supporting that reading program is going to be the way to do it. I'm done.
Any other questions or discussion? Is that the end of your?
It is. I think there's a lot of flexibility that we're looking at as we end this year. Certainly, if we can move some of the curriculum or technology needs and purchase some instructional materials this year, that lowers, and maybe we can add
like it.
the science teacher back in. We know we're gonna have, as Bill and Steve said, we're gonna have ELL issues. And we're gonna have to find a way to meet those. Contracting is one way, and you save some of your benefit costs, but in the long run, that may not be the right approach. We know that we're looking at less state funding. The current administration has has cut and consolidated grants.
I've seen it so many times.
We know that the emphasis will be on charter and not so much public districts. We also know that at the federal level, those grants are also going to decrease, and there's a whole new federal grants management program going in July 1 that we're going to have to get our arms around. So,
That's not new money, though.
No.
They're just moving money, jiggling around.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
right, I mean, and the federal government is basically abdicating funding public education. And we spend $100 billion out of $4.2 trillion on public education. It's nothing.
It's only like 6 cents out of the dollar, something like that. It's a
Right.
amazingly small number.
And at the state level, when you look at the cost of health care in Massachusetts, that has almost doubled in 15 years. You know, in 2000, 2001, it was 21% of the total state budget. This year, it's almost 40% of the state budget. And so what gets cut? Higher ed, K-12. There's a lot of areas that, health and human services for sure, and that causes a tremendous ripple across our society and the ability for our families to stay together. So there is a lot of things in play here, and we will continue to refine our ideas, and we will continue to share. And I think maybe
Was the E-rate new money? Was that,
the E-rate was increased by $2 billion, and that's wonderful because the federal government can't touch that. And that E-rate money in the early 90s, when it was set up, was for phones, and you got reimbursed for how many phones you had. Well, now it's moved to wireless and the new technologies. And so we're qualifying, we believe, for 50% savings on our wireless initiative, which is huge. And that's real money that was added into the E-rate program, that $2 billion for districts to grow their technology infrastructure for the 21st century. But I appreciate the comments, and I will continue to work with the leadership team. Maybe on May 14th, we can get the leadership team here to really hear from them who have to live it every day.
I think we support the leadership team. I think we understand
No,
the
but I think
process.
it's-
I think just going by the last few years and what we've seen as a list and,
Yeah.
and I think there's clarity, but I think, for us, just knowing that we've always had a list at a certain time.
Yep.
You know, but going by, these are the things that we need. So if we're waiting till after, then, and we know that, you know, and this is why we're waiting till after, to have that conversation. I mean,
I want to be a little cautious, though, in terms of, I get really nervous once we get to mid-May, and we have $975,000 waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
That's, for me, it's really risky. And if we don't get that, it's gonna devastate
yeah.
Well,
the
if
district
we
for many
don't-
years. But I don't know how I'm trying to say this, but I don't think for me, I'm not comfortable waiting until mid-May to say, and I don't want to do a blue line thing again either, and throw stuff out there. I think we'll have more clarity by the end of mid-May, but I need to know what that's gonna mean if we have to go back and cut almost $1 million from this budget to get to the minimum. That's gonna be, I wouldn't even know how to do that. It's personnel. I know it is. And that might be
personnel.
going up
Big
5,
piece
6,
of
7
it.
years of professional status.
Right.
I think it's a great thing to do, I just don't wanna hold on to that. I just don't want that to be, we have the scenario, I agree with you, but I just don't want that to be, well, if you don't give us this,
Yeah, I don't want it to be a stick.
I don't
No, no,
want it,
no,
I
yeah.
don't want it to go there.
But
Like we've
and
done
I'm
in the
not,
past.
I'm not even saying if we have, I'm gonna assume, and, you know, ideally, that we're gonna get the 900 and whatever it is. What I say we need to tell people is by getting that, this enables by not getting 700,000, we knew we had to cut blah, 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 blah. By getting 900,000, we are able to do blah, blah, blah. That's the
Right, that-
narrative I think is missing. That's the piece that's missing, for me.
Can you just talk about, I know you said you're going to Blackstone FinCom soon, and.
Monday night.
Basically, when are the public hearings of the FinComs? That's when we're gonna have a lot
Same
of
as-
these
same
And
as
answers.
that's when we'll
Millville.
know if
Yeah.
they're recommending our budget?
Yes.
Because that's.
And to what
big.
level?
Right.
So we're gonna know that by what, May 11th? So we will know what the towns can cover by May 11th.
Yep.
So at that point, we can start putting scenarios in place. So that's really
That's a
what it's
good
all
point.
about.
Yep, yep, it's a busy time.
So
So
I think,
by
that-
our
I
May
think
14th.
we kinda
meeting-
have to wait until
Until
we have
We see
a
what the-
real number.
Yep.
Which will be May 11th.
Yep.
Because that's the Millville Town meeting. It's the same night of the Blackstone FinCom public hearing, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
We have to
So-
make sure we're at the end of it, though.
May 11th is the night.
Yep.
Okay,
They'll wait for
so
you.
I think we'll,
They didn't wait for me last year.
They didn't,
They didn't.
they didn't, they moved on.
so moving on,
And that's my report.
okay, thank you very much. And we don't have an assistant spot today, so
Nope.
you're okay. What we don't have is another public forum, but if there's anyone here that would like to speak or ask questions, now would be the time before we close. You can come up to the table, introduce yourselves if you. Okay. So moving on, we have school committee forum, and I think we'll start over here with
You are just
Steve.
switching.
Wow, she is just flipping and winning.
Steve is always going first. I'm
Right,
not
I
changing
know.
anything.
Let's go in that way. instead
Yeah,
of-
we'll go this way.
I'd like to welcome our two new members, John and Tara, glad you're here. I'm glad you survived the election process. I know that was grueling. I'd like to thank the people in Millville that came out and voted. I know it was a small number, but that's okay. And congratulations to our new officers. I'm looking forward to a lot from you, so.
Are you gonna mention about Eric's?
No, I'll
Trial?
let him do that. He's,
Okay.
that's his moment. I don't want to take,
Okay.
so,
No, I'm curious.
no.
What happened with
We
Eric?
can't tell you later.
Yeah,
All right. So I'm looking forward to the end of April. I say it every time, the Day on the Hill. Anybody here is welcome to go and advocate to the legislator. The Mass Association of School Committees is putting it on. It's a great day. I'm definitely going. And if other people want to go, let me know. But it's a good day to get in there with other school committee members to advocate to your legislators of our dire needs. So with that,
Now, is that something, should students come? Maybe some
there are
of
a
our-
lot of
Anybody that's
students
welcome,
last
right?
year.
Yeah.
There are a lot of students, but you have to sign up. So I think if people want to go on this committee, you got to let Bridget know to sign up.
Yep.
And then if students want to go, you just sign up the same way. I mean, there
That's
were
April
committee
29th.
April 29th, yep.
Yeah.
It's all day and, it's a good networking
Yeah.
event.
When is that, boy?
When?
When?
April 29th.
20?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I'm here. I look forward to being on a school committee, and I just thought it was a real interesting and worthwhile endeavor. Is I have no children in the schools district. My daughter goes to OLV, but I think that, education, and I've talked to Bill about this I think it's the cornerstone of any community, and you gotta invest in something to build it up, and, community has been recently defined as the person you see in the mirror every day, as opposed to the people who live next door, or people who live in the next block, or on the other end of town. So I think that I think it's getting a little bit lost. So, I really am a huge fan of education. So I'm really kind of excited about, kind of digging in and understanding at least some of this, because I don't have a clue right now. I'm just kind of wandering around, so. But I know that people have already started contacting me. That was even before the election. I have no clue as to whether, so I just politely said, I just don't think it's appropriate that I discuss this right at this point in time. So, but yeah, it's, because schools, education is the biggest part of any community, other than public works and whatnot, so.
All right, thank you. Georgette?
I just want to welcome our new school committee members. That's all I have.
Welcome and congratulations
Can you give us an update on,
to the new officers. And I would like to take a personal moment to congratulate the Providence College Friars who won 4-1 at the Boston Garden this evening.
Oh, is that right?
Very good.
Just learning, looking forward to learning and growing and hopefully making some differences.
And again, I want to echo the thoughts of welcoming the new members, and I look forward to working with everybody on the committee as a whole, and, really diving deep into this budget.
Yes. And I echo that. Welcome to the two new members. We're very glad to have you. You will need to attend a course. It's called Charting the Course, and I'm sure Jane and Georgette will tell you that maybe the sooner you go, the better.
Yeah.
The better the year would be.
We can find out.
There are 2 dates coming up in May, one, May 2nd and May 16th. May 16th, it's to be determined on where it is, but Bridget can sign you up for that too. And if those dates don't work, they constantly have them, but if you go to the MASC website, you can see different things on there. And,
Erin, I forgot, I totally forgot. I did hear back from scheduling the superintendent's
Oh, good.
evaluation
That's what I was
training
gonna say.
and the self-assessment of the school committee. So Glenn Kuchar said just give him dates.
And he'll come here?
They'll come here,
Okay.
either him or Mike Gilbert. And there's another staff member, so they have plenty of staff to come out and do it. It's just a matter of what are the dates for us, and if I'll forward you the email, and then you can just give them a series of dates, and then they'll come and they'll go through it.
Can we maybe decide on a day
Yeah.
so that Erin can, is Thursday good on the off Thursdays? So at least we know we usually have a school committee meeting on a Thursday, so I don't know
knowing
how
it
long
may
it
be
is.
hours.
Is
of-
it a-
It's
is it like a
it's definitely a
full-
workshop.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
We don't want to cut ourselves short by having it here either. We want to get the full.
Yeah, no, this is what did they come out
They
before
came out
Glenn
for
did?
charting,
Glenn
no,
came for
we
charting the
went.
course.
We went,
Right, we
but
went,
they
but I
came
thought
out
they
here
came
for
here.
charting the course.
Right, okay,
But if they're gonna come out here, and we keep it on a Thursday, I think that, I mean,
yeah.
Maybe
You wanna
start
put
earlier,
that
and
date out
start
there
earlier.
first.
Yeah.
have dinner,
I would give them a couple dates, yeah, and just kind of go
Let's
with
stick
it.
to maybe a Thursday would
go
be,
for it.
So a Thursday.
I told them between now and June.
okay.
We know they're busy with budgets and everything else,
I was
and they're also
just gonna-
planning the Day on the Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so that might occupy, but I would just throw out dates, and if they can't do it, they can't do it. If they can, they will.
So maybe I'll throw the dates in June opposite our meetings, but we could also be bombarded with budget after that too. So
We
we'll
have
have
a
to keep
couple
that
and
in
then
mind.
see what happens.
Okay, and I will let all of you know what those options become.
Okay. I just have one quick question. Could we get a projected enrollment and what the projected enrollment is, at our next meeting?
Probably send that out to you sooner,
Okay,
so you have it for information.
okay. And the other question, and I forgot to ask this, but, a couple meetings ago, we had that conversation about the leasing of the complex and, the building, things that need to be repaired in the buildings. So I'm just wondering, has anybody had a chance to look at the repairs or anything?
I mean, I think one of the things that, the HVAC system definitely has to be looked at over the next couple, but I think what we were talking about, and you guys can make an appointment with Dan Keys, I don't think we've been spending the money that the
Right.
town puts into that line item.
Right,
You know, when I was on the FinCom, it was like 45,000 a
Right.
year. I think it's down to maybe 20 or 25 now, or
Yeah,
20.
25.
So I think we gotta look at spending that, if there's
Right.
carpets, if there's anything. And then there's the green grant that I think they got 150,000. I think the schools, that building, I think is designated for anywhere between 40 and 50. I'm not sure the number, but I think it's that percentage, because they wouldn't have got the green grant if Perry didn't sign the form. So some of it has to go there. So I think what we thought was if there was 20 in there this year, and they're putting 20 in next year, in just the town budget, that's 40 grand right there.
Can we lose it if we don't spend it?
No, I'm telling you, we gotta spend it.
That's what I'm saying.
We gotta spend the 20 this year,
That's
and then
what-
knowing you
that's-
have 20 into next year, you know, you could start the carpet, so you could, I think you have to come up with a capital list
Well,
of that building.
That was my question.
Yeah.
I guess that was my question, and should we make this, I mean, should we make this, like regional agreement? We have somebody who's
On
spearing
top
it.
of it
Should
all
we
the time?
Because we don't have a
Well,
building.
they're still gonna own the building. if
Facilities.
Right, but
anything
a
changes.
facilities manager, so I think it's important, maybe if one of us could spear that and make sure we contact. I
And
mean,
just a suggestion,
I wanna spend the money, I
And I
guess that's
think
what
it
I'm
should
saying,
be-
and
we
I wanna make sure that
contracted
we're,
with NESDEC, New
Yeah.
England School Development
Right.
Council, to do a needs assessment on the high school.
right,
Because we're a member district, they could do the similar independent review of the complex as well.
could we look into that, just so
They
that?
can turn it around
I think we
fairly
need someone
quickly.
specific for HVAC.
Well,
And I think if there's a new HVAC system going into the town hall.
Right.
I think right now, so I think the conversation could
Yeah,
be,
couldn't giddy up on.
well, I mean, this isn't gonna be a little, this is like $1 million for a new
Right.
HVAC system. So I think the best thing to do with everyone is we have to come up with a capital plan,
Right.
at least for that building right away, and start talking with the towns about how we're gonna chunk this out. I know this building's gonna be paid off, I think it's 5 years.
Right.
I think it's 5 years. So, which is great, because the high school's gonna need a lot of care. So we'll have to look at but I think we need to do a district-wide.
So it's-
Millville's been pretty good about keeping up with their list, but I think the complex and the complex specifically, we gotta get a capital plan
So do you want to put a member?
in there.
You want a
talking
member
about
to?
JFK?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important that we,
Well, how do we do committees anyway?
I think that'll be,
Creative.
that's what I was
Windows and
thinking.
doors, I
I
think.
think we'll,
Their
we'll
committee.
put that on the next agenda
we
too.
They're all old buildings.
Decide on subcommittees on the next agenda, and we can look at that.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
there was a facilities.
There was.
There was.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
the.
Yeah,
Diane and Brian.
yeah,
So-
and Georgette.
And I think the people that know the buildings best are the custodians and then the
Right.
leadership. And then, but I think where we fall short is we need to have an Excel spreadsheet for the next 5 years. These are the 5 things we want to do each year, this,
Right.
this.
Well,
thi-
especially if
but-
they're putting the money aside to do it, we
Right.
need to.
Didn't they
diligently
do a
let them do
capital
it.
plan on JFK? Didn't they do a because I know we looked at numbers for, doors, windows, and internal plant.
Did we ever do the phones? I
Renovation.
know that's been kicking around forever.
AFM school classrooms
Yeah.
don't have phones. But I think we have to we have to find that. I think Paul actually was one of the ones who did the district capital plan. I think we just have to find it, and we have to update it, and look at a 5-year plan about, these are the must-haves. We know that, the technology plan was great. We know we're gonna do this over the next 3 years. I think we need something similar for really every building,
For
you
facilities.
know.
Okay.
But the thing is, we don't have that facilities manager, like, we have the tech person who, and you did the 5, so I think it's,
They're right here.
well, I also think we need to get involved in that.
So on our next agenda, we'll make sure we have, the subcommittees.
Yep, and let me do some homework and see if I can find anything, documents from the
And our
past.
next meeting
Keys,
is
I
April
think, has
30th
that.
now, and then May 14th. Everybody got that?
I know Charlie Sawyer's pretty knowledgeable about that.
Yep.
Any other items, or I'm looking for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, seconded by Jane. Thank you, everyone.
All those in
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Good night.
See ya.
Can I bring that home?